we have a quorum, so maybe we could at least get started and take a vote on the minutes. So good evening, everybody, at 6:01 on February 28th, 2022. In attendance from the committee is Todd Dargy, Cheryl Zarella-Burke, John Smalling, and myself, Tom Connolly. Also our usual support team with Linda Cole and Sandy Nolan. I think first order of business would be to accept the minutes of the meeting of February 14th. So could I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Thanks, Todd. And a roll call vote. Todd?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
And myself, Tom Connolly, so that motion carries. So minutes are all set. I have a bunch of sort of small items to either update you on or ask for updates that we can save until we get to as may arise at the end. I think the main purpose of tonight's meeting is to go through or have Chief Chavez and Cesar walk us through their budgets. As you recall from the last annual meeting, Chief had a PowerPoint deck that laid everything out. He's asked to pre-flight that with us this time through. So I was going to turn it over to Chief Chavez and have him walk us through his budget. Chief. There he is.
You're on mute, Chief.
I'm mute, Chief.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my earbuds to work, and I can't seem to connect, but we'll manage. So basically, Tom, so the PowerPoint presentation is really not specific to the budget. It's basically, I know the committee had some questions in regards to some items in the budget, so I tried to and some issues that I see going forward with the department. So that's what the PowerPoint presentation is. And then I'm also, I'll be ready as well to address the budget if you guys have any questions. So I'm going to try to share my screen. And again, I've never done this, so this could be, I might have to.
Does Chief have permission?
Yeah, actually, Cesar, why don't you put up the PowerPoint? Which I think I gave it to you. This way, it's a lot easier than me trying to figure this out because I've never seen some of this stuff.
Yep, just give me 1 second.
Yep.
Chief, while we're waiting on that, if you can email that to me too, because we need to have that coming in through the secretary, so it's in the minutes. I don't have any copy of it. Thank you.
All right. As soon as I'm done with it, I'll send it to you. Okay, Linda?
Yep.
Or actually, Cesar can do it in the background if he doesn't, you wouldn't mind. I'm just waiting on Cesar. This is good. Are you able to share it, Cesar?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to open.
Okay. No, these don't work, so.
Okay, Chief, we've got it.
Okay, so yeah, Cesar, I want you to just go on to the first slide. It's just the fiscal 23 budget proposal. So basically just some stats to kind of get the board, the committee, I should say, some historical perspective with what department is facing. So in 2000, which was 22 years ago, the department consisted of the chief, 3 patrol sergeants, 6 permanent police patrol officers, 1 full-time court officer, 2 permanent part-time officers, and at the time they were authorized for 5, 4 specials, 6 police matrons, a animal control officer, and an assistant. Fast forward to 17 people assigned to the police department. Fast forward to 2022. Caesar, if you could move on to the next slide. We have the chief, 3 patrol sergeants. We have 8 permanent patrol officers, which one of them, we've lost. The full-time court officer is now a part-time court officer. We've lost all permanent part-time officers, part-time officers, which is, we're authorized for 5. And we've lost all our specials. Well, we'll be losing all our specials as of June 30th, other than just 1 officer. The other special we have is Chief Broderick, and he's only available to work details. He can't work uniform patrol, the cruiser duty. We have the 5 matrons. The animal control officer was a part-time employee for 18 hours, and the assistant. So in 20 years, instead of adding personnel, we've actually lost personnel. So, and this trend's going to keep going if we don't do something soon. Next slide, Caesar. So again, some more stats. Department patrols over 50 road miles. The town consists of over 2,000 building dwellings and currently over 7,500 residents, in addition to the visitors traveling or visiting the town. Federal recommendations by the Department of Justice is that you should have 2.8 officers per 1,000 residents. So the optimal number, if we're using the federal criteria, would be 19 officers. That's never going to happen, in Halifax due to the budget and just the financial situation that Halifax finds itself in. So my recommendation is that we need to look at, down the road, is increasing by 3 officers for fiscal 24, not this one that we're planning on, because it's going to be, there's a moot point. There's no money in the budget for anything like that. One of those positions being the lieutenant that I've been asking for the last couple of years, and then 2 additional patrol officers to offset the specials that we've lost. That would give myself the needed flexibility, assistance, span of control needed to run the department efficiently and financially prudently. And then we'll set up the town for the next 10 years. So just to give you some numbers, in the last 4 years, our call for service, these are the calls that are either come through 911 or self-initiated. 2018, a little over 12,000. 2019, a little over 14,000. 2020, it went down because of the obviously the COVID year, and then 2021 almost 14.5 again. Next slide.
Could you, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could
Sure.
you just go back to slide 2 for just a second?
Yep.
I just had before we go through this
Sure.
quickly. So how many, in that 17, you had part-time
Right.
officers, full-time officers, you had 7 FTEs on the, for your patrol?
So what happens in 2000, we had this thing called reserve intermittent officers. So they were civil service officers, but they were waiting to go to the academy.
Yeah.
And the town was authorized for 5. Back in 2000, they had 2. And then we had the special police officers. So like the matrons, the animal control, the administrative assistant, that doesn't really count. The full-time officers has never gone over 11. Dating back, I found some records back in the late 80s that the mythical 12th officer was actually employed by Halifax as a full-time basis. So their number's always been 11. Again, it was manageable when you had the special police officers and the reserve intermittent officers that you could rely on to cover those shifts. Once June hits and I lose those officers, it's going to be we're going to be hard pressed, not only to staff the positions, but also to pay for the positions, because as you'll see on one of the slides, that money those shifts that were taken by the special officers and reserve intermittents at a lower rate are going to have to be filled by full-time officers at their overtime rate.
Sure. Thank you. I just wanted to get a sense of what it's doing to your patrol force. Thank you.
So special and part-time police officers. So that's one of the first issues we have is this is what our special part-time officers have covered in the last few fiscal years. In 19, a little over 1,100 hours. That's the total to the right, 27,000. In fiscal 20, they covered 1,600 hours, about $40,000. In 21, almost 3,000 hours that they've of coverage for $73,000. So far in fiscal 22 through January 31st, they had covered 931 hours, so about $23,000. So the average full-time officer's overtime rate is about 55 when you average it out. So as you know, easily you can see the pressure that I'll have on my budget after June 30th. There is not going to be, there's no going back to special police officers as they are not trained to the new standards set by the state because of the police reform. No academy certified officer in their right mind would accept a part-time position when they can be hired full-time anywhere in the state.
For sure.
It's another one of the consequences of our esteemed legislature didn't take into consideration when creating the Police Reform Act. Small towns are going to suffer. As a matter of fact, I believe MMA, I think Massachusetts Municipal Association, at first spoke against police reform, and then when they started to see the whole picture and how it was going to affect their small towns, they actually spoke in favor of not doing the Reform Act. But you know, it did pass, and now that we have to work within those structures. Next slide. So another issue is the expense line in my budget. For the last 2 years, it's been at 70,000. Everything has gone up. General increases, the demand on goods. In fiscal 20, my expense line was 76,000. So I actually had to cut when I believe it for fiscal 21. It's, you know, there's not really much leeway in that line. And I'm looking right now that I'm probably going to be doing a request for funding, you know, towards the end of the year, if everything continues to go the way it's going right now. There's also the potential to lose more police officers to higher paying towns.
Yeah.
Because they're in negotiations right now with the town. The town, obviously, being the situation that it is, that you guys are all familiar with, isn't able to offer not even a COLA to the officers. So they're trying to work the language out. But if we lose one full-time officer or two full-time officers, I don't know how we can staff the department 3 shifts 24/7. It's going to be impossible. So next slide. So this is just some of the Police Reform Act has also put additional burden on towns and cities to ensure that their officers attend additional training that they deem as the state deems as important, which I agree with some of these items. But the problem is that they mandate these things, but then they don't give you any money for it. Right. So my fiscal 23 training budget is $10,000. It's the same as last year, and it's actually $4,000 less than it was in fiscal 21 when I was asked to make some cuts in my budget. So these are some of the items that the state is looking for us to train in: de-escalation, mental illness, disability, mass gatherings, cultural competency, autism training, use of force, crisis intervention, rape prevention, a bunch of different things. And the training council at the MPTC will again try to provide classes during our 32-hour of in-service, but it's not enough. So we have to look at other training venues. And what makes it more difficult going forward is that it was when we were doing the virtual training, the officers could actually do the class at the station. I didn't have to backfill their shift. Now, as we're going back to live, those officers are going to travel to these training sites.
Is that a requirement?
And then I have to backfill their shift. Excuse me for one second. Yep. Good.
Chief, is that a requirement?
Which ones?
I mean, everybody's doing remote training now. Why would we go back to the old days? If we can
I don't know.
deliver
I
this.
think everybody's just is tired of doing Zoom meetings. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I know that they're actually meeting right now with the training council, the committee to see if they want to do hybrid training. They're trying to
Sure.
get some feedback from all the chiefs to see if they would prefer the virtual to the hands-on stuff, the live training.
Okay,
So I
thanks.
think you're going to see a lot of the chiefs wanted to continue with the online, just because
Right.
it's a lot more efficient and cheap for us to deal with in our
Cost-effective.
training budgets.
Sure. Thanks.
Yep. Next slide. So in addition to all the training that the Police Reform Act, it also has imposed more record keeping requirements to the departments. It's like we don't have body worn cameras yet, but if we're trying to get them through an article. If we get that, we have a lot of record keeping things that we need to do with that. A lot of records requests. They wanted us to maintain a internal affairs on every officer, whether they've left the department, is still in the department, have gone to other departments. We have increased record keeping, record requests for public records, use of force mandates. That it's really putting a burden on my administrative assistant and on my sergeants, because it's taken away from their time on the street where they should be supervising. It's given causing the town possibly added liability, since the officers are on their own without a proper sergeant there or supervisor. And that's one of the main reasons why I've been requesting for the lieutenant, in my last three budget cycles. And then so this is just a kind of a caveat for, so the fiscal 23, the budgeted position for the lieutenant is 93,11653. So that's according to the grade pay under wage and personnel, because that lieutenant's position is under wage and personnel. So the officer that took the lieutenant's position would need to negotiate a contract with the town. And I'm pretty sure that, they would negotiate some sort of educational component, and that number is definitely going to be higher. If you go strictly by the amount that's wage and personnel dictates, a lieutenant would be making 93,11653. So my three sergeants that are currently working right now are scheduled to be paid with all their stipends and all the other benefits, respectively, 102, 103, and 105. So there is no way that you're going to, be able to pay sergeants, more than lieutenants. It doesn't make any sense. So that's going to be another one of the issues that, obviously it won't be addressed this fiscal year, but in fiscal 24, hopefully, again, through some funding sources that I'll mention in the next slide. If you want to go to the next slide. So one of the revenue sources that we've been looking at is the two marijuana dispensaries that currently have HCAs with town, not planning on opening, would be to contribute a portion of the 3% impact fee to the police budget in order to help fund these positions. The issue, again, these dispensaries probably won't be opening until after June maybe, or one before June, the other one after June. So we can't really count on that money right now. And then and the other position would be for an officer that would do normal patrol and also function as an SRO. Right now, we have an officer designated as an SRO, but she works a midnight shift and she can spend very little time at the school to increase, to start programs and be with the kids there at the middle school. And so my vision is kind of have that officer do normal patrols, work as an SRO, start harm reduction and education programs such as there in the elementary school, because studies have shown that if you don't get them young, by the time they get to middle school, it's too late. I know Plimpton's got a very successful DARE program at their elementary school for years. Officer Smith, and he's doing a great job there, and that's what I'm kind of looking to doing, down the road. And next, so I hope I kind of gave you some perspective on what we're looking at, maybe answer some questions. I'm sure you'll have more questions. I mean, as far as the budget, everything that the numbers are there, and hopefully I explained them. I was asked to level fund, which I did, other than the wage, because of the lieutenant's position. I knew, but I needed to put it in there. I know it was going to be the first thing that was going to get cut, but I needed to put that in there, and everything else is level funded in my budget. I mean, if you'd like, we can go through, line by line item by line item. But that's basically where we're at right now.
Chief, the 70,000 that you referred to as expense before, that's your entire non-employee expense base?
That's correct.
Thanks. Comments, questions from the committee?
No.
Nothing at this time, no.
No. Me either.
Guys, I'm just going to put it out there because at some point we're going to have to talk about it. I mean, I personally find this appalling. As a community, police, fire, and educating our kids are the three things we're supposed to be looking after. And to have a police force that's 1/3 smaller than it was 22 years ago, and I'm sorry, I'm tired. I just got off the road from Orlando, so I'm not remembering the stats. But I mean, our population is up, our kids' enrollment is up. The median household income in this town has increased by about 50% in the last 10 years. So this thing that we keep referring to as a situation, we have one of the lowest tax rates in the state. And it's a box of our own making. And I think what's really short-sighted is we think we can negotiate a 1% pay increase for these officers and for other dedicated town employees, and presume that they're indentured to us, that they won't go elsewhere. And they're just going to vote with their feet. So unless we're competitive and unless we find a way to close these gaps, I don't, as a town, what are we offering? So, I mean, I just think we got to think real hard and try and be supportive of some of these. There's nothing that I saw here or in the budget so far that seems unreasonable or things that are easy targets for us to cut. So with that, I'll get off my soapbox. But just as I absorb some of these numbers, it just strikes me as level funding is a requirement we put on ourselves, and I think we have to figure out a way around that. I know that's not popular, but it's reality when we're looking at this, and then we're looking at what's going on with the school, and the things that the school is dealing with are not profligate. So, we'll get to that. We'll get to that at another time.
Yeah, Tom,
Chief.
so one last thing. So that would be when you guys are looking at the budget, the line number 45, which is the wages. That's the big switch. Well, it's not a big switch. The amounts are the same. I just reversed it. So my part-time wage for the overtime would be 80, and then the wage for regular overtime would be 220, because of not having those specials. So the amount is this. The amount is, I believe, because last year was 80, and 160 was a town meeting approved for 21-22. So it would just be the 80 and the 220 kind of. And actually, the 80 will probably be less than that because
Chief froze.
there's only going to be one guy, one special duty. So he'll be making a lot of money if he works every shift he's eligible for. I don't think that's going to happen either. So.
Thank you, Chief. It was enlightening as usual. If we could, Caesar, if you haven't already, let's get it to Linda so that we have it committed to the minutes.
I did forward it to her.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. Any other comments or questions for Chief?
No.
Okay.
Do you
At
want
this
to
point,
touch on the articles that you asked for? I have forwarded them, the
capital articles.
recommendations to the finance committee. If you wanted to, might save you from coming back again. If you wanted to touch on the articles that you asked for. You're on mute again.
I'm sorry. So the articles is for 2 new cruisers. Again, that rotation. One is the replace a marked unit, then the other one is the unmarked unit, which would be my car. Again, I think I brought it up at the last FinCom meeting, is I think we need to look at putting our cars out for auction. I know, I think we get like $5,000 as a trade-in, and we just recently found out through just different sources that one of our cruisers was bought at an auction for $17,500. So they made like $12,500 on one of our cruisers, which it could be money that could be coming back into our budget. So I think I know in the past they've done it. I think we need to look at that again as we keep talking about thinking outside the box and looking at revenue ideas. That might be a good idea to look at. So it'd be the 2 new cruisers, the 51,860 for the 15 body-worn cameras. Again, that's one of the articles. I'm still hoping that the feds give us some money through a grant. We've applied for 2 different grants so far. We're on the waiting list for one of them for small, rural, and tribal departments. So if we get some funding for that number will go down. Again, it's not a. I'm just looking ahead. Everybody's is going to body-worn cameras. It helps the officer. It helps the citizens. It helps the transparency that we want to put out there to the community. If we don't do them this year, down the road, but we need to look at some way to be able to fund those cameras.
Yeah.
$7,000, $7,379 is for an article to replace the surveillance cameras in our cell block. So this is separate than, I think Caesar has an article or something with the cameras of the municipal buildings. This is strictly for the cell block. The state comes in every year to check our cameras, check the whole cell block. And we actually had one camera that failed. Luckily, we had no prisoners that week there. So we're very fortunate. We've had one camera replaced so far, and we need to replace the others. So that's what that money would go to. And then 5,000 would be to replace. We apply for a grant through the feds to replace our ballistic vests for our officers. We're a mandatory wear department, so the federal government reimburses half of that money. So we still have some money in that line. We're just trying to kind of keep it replenished, because I think right now 4 or 5 guys are going to need new vests for the next fiscal year.
What's the useful life of a vest?
I'm sorry?
What's the
5
useful
years.
life of a vest? 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chief. Anything else?
Yeah, I guess just a quick question. I guess, Chief, can you just speak to the condition of the cameras inside and outside of the building? The non-cell block cameras, are those in usable condition? Are there any deterioration concerns with them and such?
No, we've been pretty good. We actually had a couple of cameras that failed within the last couple of years, and we've replaced them. So the exterior cameras are pretty good. It's the ones that in the camera in the cell block themselves that are kind of failing right now. But the exterior ones are pretty much in good shape. We had one that was on the area where we bring our prisoners in that had failed, and that has been replaced. And we had another one on the driveway, the driveway coming in that failed, and we had that replaced. As they fail, we kind of replace them.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments on Chief's budget, first, thanks very much, Chief. It was enlightening and very helpful. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Um,
Chief.
You are.
I think we're going to move to Caesar now and walk through a much smaller but equally important budget. So let's turn it over to Caesar. Caesar, how do you want to structure this? We hadn't talked about it in advance, so do you want to just walk us through your budget? How do you want to do this?
Sure. I mean, I guess I'll just start off. I'll start off from pretty much just going over the overall increases. What I'm proposing.
Could you share the exhibit that you
Sure.
shared with us? That way people know what lines and things
Yep.
you're talking about, Caesar.
Let's see.
Maybe do budget first, then we'll do capital.
Yep. All right. Let me know if you can see this screen.
Coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So pretty much how I've laid this out is I've set up essentially 3 columns. I understand you guys asked for level funded. My budget in particular deals with a lot of contracts that have contractual increases annually. So, I did the best that I can and shaved off contracts that I was able to shave off. There is an exception in here that, is still up for consideration. Essentially, level funded budget is the same. I would add that line 16 right here, where it says website hosting and maintenance. That is an increase to the budget overall, but what I'm proposing is that we actually close out the website committee account and take what that account's primarily used for maintaining the website contract and the support and stuff like that, and centralizing it into the IT budget. So that way it's noticed and it's accounted for and centralized. So that increases the budget, but it zeroes out another account. I just wanted to make that very clear. So I'm just gonna pull up my notes. Hold on one second. So I guess I'll start off with the wages. What's being proposed is a level serviced, which pretty much means it is level funded. The only increases that are there are to maintain our contractual obligations, with one exception, which is line 9, and I'll get to that, why I included that. Start off with the wages. We did level off at 25 hours per week. The 40 hours per week that I'm currently at right now, and the grade 10 and 12 salary options are provided there for your consideration to kind of see what those amounts would be, what the increases are, so you guys can at least have those numbers at face value. The current additional 15 hours that the Board of Selectmen approved through ARPA, the additional 15 hours that I'm working right now, it was approved by the Board of Selectmen through ARPA, and that is through June 30th. As of July 1st, we're back at 25 hours per week, unless the Board of Selectmen, which does have the option to do this, decides to use ARPA funding to add, again, the 15 hours per week to bring it back up to 40. I do want to bring up that, as you know, Tom, you've mentioned in the past, the IT department has had a significant increase in demand and services across the board, especially due to COVID. There was an increased user base that needed to be supported when it comes to boards and committee members and volunteers and the like. And the biggest issue right now is that the time necessary to be able to provide that effective service, but also not taking away from the day-to-day. And because of the current salary structure, which is hourly, and being eligible for overtime, which I don't like to take, it creates a fiscal nightmare, because now we're left with, don't do X thing, push that off so you can work on the other priorities. And being pushed in 10 different directions, pulled in 10,000 different directions, makes not even the job harder, but service is being affected by that long term. So I do want to keep that in mind with keeping the position hourly. That should be taken into consideration. Right now, I can tell you that from as of to date, I believe the total amount of overtime that was spent thus far is around $6,000, a little over 6,000. And we've been very strict for the past at least month or so with just ending it at 40 and calling it a day. But I did want to bring that up so that way people kind of understand that that is an effect on it. By nature, my position does have to work overnights to do the things that need to get done, like updates and upgrades, as to not affect the day-to-days while people are in the building. Also being there to respond to emergencies for our other 24/7 operating departments, whether it be in the event of a storm or just public safety needs you. So overtime is 40 hours will do the trick in terms of it's better than 25, but I think that would be the bare minimum that I would suggest the town seriously consider investing into, where I believe the town would get its most bang for its buck, I'll use the term, is if they made the position salary. It's not uncommon where an IT department at least has one salaried person to accommodate the extra work, especially for those on-call situations. So where they're not worrying about overtime and not worrying about telling someone not to come to work, and therefore having an issue take a week longer, 2 weeks longer than it should have.
Caesar,
So-
Caesar, if I could ask, reviewing the
Sure.
wage and personnel charter and documentation, it looks like your position was originally staffed as an IT technician, correct? Which is
Yeah.
clearly an hourly job, but what I'm getting at here is that
Yeah.
the job complexity has gotten us to a point where the job is likely it would pass FOSA testing to be a more
Exactly.
complex job than it was when you were originally hired.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
I would say yes. Yeah.
Is it, I mean, with the number of things that you're working on here too, the other point that I'd kind of make here, it sounds like you're a single point of failure.
Yeah. Essentially.
Okay. So we have no backup, right?
I mean, the backup lies with our third party, professionals that I rely on to take over in my absence in that event, or the town if I wasn't around. But because of the continuous reasonable budget cuts, there isn't enough money to even fund that. I mean, a typical managed services provider or solutions provider costs roughly $150 to $200 an hour. And just to look down at what we've budgeted for professional services, it's only $1,000. I mean, that would get you barely a full,
Well, if we
depending
had-
on the issue.
Yeah, I mean, some towns, if we had an MSP, we wouldn't have you. I'd rather have
Yeah.
you in this position, but it would be an either or.
And most towns, and this town specifically did come from a managed service provider. And
It doesn't work. Okay.
because it's you pay, and the police department has a managed service provider now, and at the end of the day, a lot of that burden is still, because it's easier and because it gets done more effectively and personably, which is always a plus. A lot of that technical burden always falls on the IT department locally anyway. And I rely on that managed service provider to handle the more larger tasked items that don't necessarily mean interacting with the employee.
Let's focus on we've got a lot of budget to go through, so that's
Yeah.
helpful on the wage and on the wage and staffing side. Maybe just walk us through
So-
some of the other significant increases.
Yep. So I'm just going to go through down under internet services, our broadband increase of $150, which is level service. That is a contractual obligation.
Sure.
Our fiscal 24 renewals are taking place in March, a couple weeks from now. In the past, I've had potential and success in getting the amount to actually go down within our current fiscal year by re-signing early and getting a better promotion. But we have a new account manager. There has been some changes at Comcast, so like I said, I don't know where that will lead, but we are up for renewal in fiscal year 24. So right now it's just
Small amount.
$150 increase. Yeah.
Right, small amount. We should focus on the material ones.
I guess, is there anything you want me to specifically talk about? I mean, do you want me to go over the cellular? Is that a large enough increase you want me to go over?
Well, it's a double. I mean, if anything's a double, we probably should talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the cellular is an increase of $1,520. This is to accommodate the cost of adding the wireless backup to our police, fire, and highway departments, as well as the cost of having a external hotspot to be used for unique circumstances where internet access is not readily available, whether people are at meetings or one of our ambulances or cruisers don't have adequate internet access with the equipment in the car. It's faulty. We would use that in substitution of that.
Sandy, it sounds like, so it's an equipment buy.
It's equipment and service.
So the equipment we own, it's that increase is primarily for the internet related costs for the data services.
Okay.
So this is not including the
capital.
cost of hardware.
No capital.
The hardware we own, initially the initial request was for $3,540. What that included was a secondary hotspot, which we activated middle of the year this year, I believe during the October nor'easter, and that was because there were certain employees who need our town clerk, for instance, who needed to have access to update postings during those outages because of the time that it fell. So that enabled her to do her job in that instance. What we did was we removed the wireless backup that's currently at Town Hall from funding. And I prioritized our public safety departments who would need it if it were to go out. And I mean, that's how I cut it. I just pretty much cut in priority. I mean, we could, in theory, cut all of it. But like I said, I think having the police, fire, and highway departments make sure they're able to have the most accessible communication when everything we do is internet-based in some degree is the most important.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take away from our emergency preparedness for what I'm not saying that it's not an increase, but it's $1,500. I think long-term it's a good investment. The next one, which is website and hosting maintenance, that's just $100 increase. That's contractual. Next one is the network, endpoint security, and cyber training. So,
well, I think we skip, I'm sorry, could we go through it line by line? So line 11 and 12, your level funding.
13.
Yep.
Line 13, you're going up quite a bit.
So 13, yes, thank you. 13, the $5,400 increase. This is particularly for Mimecast. Currently, if we were to level service, we would be able to maintain everything we're doing now with Mimecast, no problem. My proposal for the increase is to add on a internal email protection module within Mimecast. Right now, well, let me first explain what the internal email protect is. The internal email protection is not required for us to continue operating, but it is very, very recommended, especially with the number of increased cyber attacks that are going on, and because of a few incidents that we've actually had happen in town here. The school superintendent issue, for example. This does not add any sort of internal email protection in terms of making it more secure. It's not encrypting emails, has nothing to do with that aspect. Rather, it's an addition to extend the process of validating, scanning, and diverting emails and their contents from being internally distributed and then sent out from our system. Whereas right now we have only the internal emails coming from external sources being scanned, validated, and diverted if necessary. If the school superintendent had been in our email system and that was an internally shared file because one of our own accounts got compromised, it would have been a very serious and costly issue. But because Mimecast did its job and because she is not on our email system, that's where our current subscription did its job and scanned it, processed it, validated it, and blocked it.
So help us understand the added level here. Is this is outbound? So if somebody spoofs a town employee with an outbound email, it would be scanned and trapped with this added service, and that's not being done now?
So spoofing is a little bit different. If you set up an email server and you pretend, and you pretend to make it one of us,
yeah.
Our email system has certain certificates and authentication verifications built into our network as a whole.
Okay,
so that when it goes to the mail server, it doesn't validate that.
I assume that. So what added level of service? I'm still not getting what this adds.
So
Yeah.
I'll use an example. Let's say my account gets compromised, gets hacked, and they go into my email, they encrypt my files, and then they start sending out emails to other people legitimately as me, to external system users and even our own town employees to further spread that malicious content. All of that traffic is not being scanned or validated and preventing it from going beyond my account. If there was malicious.
How is that different from the spoofing that you just said we cover?
Because when you're spoofing an account, you're simply using someone's identity, which is outside of the email system completely. When you're spoofing someone's email account and you send Joe Schmo at Gmail an email, Joe Schmo at gmail.com, and you're emailing it from Tom Connolly at gmail.com, but you're saying it's from Halifax, there are certain certificates and certain validations with regard to DNS that happen in that transmission. The email provider receiving that email is going to know it's not from us because it doesn't have our certain signatures. But that doesn't come from the email system directly. That comes from our DNS servers, which are outside of the email system. It gets very complicated. I'm trying to make it as less technical as possible.
It's two different levels of spoofing. So to give that second level, which is a legitimate hack internally where they take over an account, that's what this 5400 would add.
Yeah, go ahead,
Michael.
Just to see if I can help simplify just a bit. I understand what he's getting at, and it's a good thing. The 5400 is money well spent. At least I think so. But typically right now, they protect any email that comes in to the town's email system is getting scanned and checked to make sure that it's not trying to compromise anybody's system.
Yeah.
But in the event, and there's always something that gets through, because the hackers are out there, they're trying. They always try to get something through, and they find a way around, and they get something in, and it compromises, say, Caesar's account. And all of a sudden we see ourselves getting emails from Caesar. Well, this check on the outbound mail will stop all those mails from going out. Now we would then click on that email if we got it from Caesar and say, oh yeah, it's from Caesar. Let me see what he says. We would then be infected and be sending out more emails to compromise more systems.
Sure.
So this will prevent that from happening. Should something get in, this will prevent it from getting out.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much appreciated.
I learned a long time ago how to try to make this easy.
Yeah, I'm still learning.
It takes time, my friend. It takes time.
Tom, does that answer your questions? Mike, explanation?
Yeah, I mean,
Answer your
that's what I
question.
understood. That's what I understood before. What I was really trying to understand was whether we had a basic spoof protection in place now.
Yes. Short answer.
so-
Short answer.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, and this is the higher order.
It's just doubling the protection to,
Yeah, just
give
as
us a better,
Sure.
a
just
more
as an example,
99%,
Before we put this in at my own firm, my CFO got an invoice from me for $50,000 with a request to pay it immediately. And it wasn't to pay me by any stretch, but since I was the CEO, that's what she got. And she knew enough somehow to know that it couldn't possibly have been for me, but only because she knew it. And that was prior to us putting this in. We use Mimecast as well. Okay, thanks. That helped cover it.
Yeah. So the next one, line 20, which is our network endpoint security and cyber training. The approved and level funded, that simply covered our firewalls, which we have 4 of. We have 3 identical firewalls at our highway, COA, and water department. Then we have a more robust, capable firewall at the town hall, which is pretty much the data center. It's taking in all the connections and pretty much acting as the primary connection. All those firewalls connect to the town hall. That's how they get their files. That's how they get, that people authenticate, access certain applications and whatnot. In 2020, for our fiscal year 2020, we renewed our firewall license. I mean, our antivirus license, and that was a 3-year term. The 3-year term is now up, and it's up for renewal in fiscal year 2022. So that increase includes that, in addition to a possible vote, depending on whether the board decides to approve what is one of my capital projects, a network refresh, as an ARPA expense. If it gets approved for ARPA, that equipment and licensing would start this fiscal year and renew next. So that includes that renewal cost. If that does not get approved by the Board of Selectmen and it goes to town meeting, that amount will go down to $15,482. But we won't have that. I won't have that answer until the 8th at their next meeting. So I figured I'd put in the highest and then go down from there. So that way it's not a surprise if they do approve it.
Can you give me that lower number again, Caesar?
15,482. Now, if that does go to town meeting, what that $15,482 covers is our regular firewall renewals for the 4 we have, our antivirus licensing for our servers and our endpoints, as well as cyber training. Cyber training is added. However, what we're leveraging is getting another 3-year term for each of them, and then financing that 3-year term over 3 years, so we can maintain our annual expense, so it doesn't go away. We can maintain it, but we're locking in place for at least the next 3 fiscal years that amount that will not increase. And we've seen by doing that, including adding the even addition with the cyber training, it's roughly $1,000 savings on the first year if we were to not do that and go with just our standard annual renewal of our firewalls and our antivirus. to give you an exact number, it would be $16,501 if we didn't do the 3-year term and then finance it over 3 years. And that's without the cyber training. If we get the 3-year term, finance it over 3 years, and that includes the cyber training, we're looking at a $15,482 guaranteed, committed 3-year amount. Does that make sense?
And cyber
So
training just covers, cyber training just covers you, Caesar?
Nope, cyber training is pretty much the replacement for what the state program is, except it's a little more managed. We have more control over it. One of the biggest issues that I found with the state training is I had no control. So the notifications that went out at odd hours of the day, adding and removing users, was not sufficient for what I felt was effective training.
But it was free?
It was a grant opportunity.
Okay.
It was a grant opportunity. And yes, I think it did bring good results, but I think the training was less effective. I honestly, me personally, being the person who had to run it, got more complaints than I did with someone saying, I actually learned something and it wasn't an inconvenience. I think we'd all agree that when something becomes an inconvenience, your interest and engagement in it lessens significantly.
Can I just
Um,
clarify, Caesar? You said
Sure.
with the training, it would be 15,482. Without the training, the price goes up to 16,501.
Correct, because with the 15,482 is all 3 of those financed from a 3-year term. And what we found was, for whatever reason, without the cyber training to finance just the firewalls and just the antivirus, it didn't have that much of it had a reverse effect for whatever reason. That's just what came back from what we quoted
I
out.
just wanted to make sure.
Um,
The training is saving us money.
Essentially, yes. Versus if we stuck with our regular annual renewal next year, well, for fiscal 22, 23, it'd be 16,501. But we also would have to plan for a 5% increase across the board for both, because that would be subject to contractual increases, like all these other lines. Whereas if we stick with the 15,482, if the Board of Selectmen doesn't approve the ARPA request, that we guarantee that for the next 3 years. So next year, for fiscal 24, we will be budgeting that at 15,482 and be able to maintain that line up until 2026.
Caesar, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, quick question. I know I think you said that so basically the difference between the 15,482 and the 19,910, like 4,500 or so, is based on a vote of the Board of Selectmen, did you say, on something to do with ARPA? With
Correct.
the ARPA money? What's the,
Yep.
I'm sorry, what's the 4,500?
So if they approve the network refresh for the police and library and little minor upgrades for the water department with the ARPA funds, those firewall specifically for the library and the police department, those increases would then have to be incorporated into the next fiscal year,
Gotcha. Thank you. That's the part I was missing.
which would be 24th. Yes, thank you for the clarification. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Good.
EDM?
Then what was that?
Are you moving to EDM, line 25?
Yes. Yep. Line 25, which is EDM, which is our electronic document management. This is the software that was approved at the May 2021 town meeting as part of our digitalization project.
Okay.
Obviously, we paid our first year. This is the renewal, which is $3,100 to maintain that contract.
So why is it not in last year's? Because I remember going through the proposal and everything for this. Why wouldn't it be why isn't it a 3,100 last year, 3,100 this year?
Because the first year was paid out of the article itself. which would have been
Oh,
this year.
got it. Thank you.
So the renewal ends up going in the next fiscal year.
Sure.
And this is also a 3-year. So fiscal 24, we would see that same amount. And then I believe fiscal 25 would be where there could be a possible increase, but I've been told that that's unlikely.
Okay.
And then go to the next one, the PDF line 27, which is the PDF authoring and editor. Essentially, to compare it to what most people are familiar with, it is Adobe Acrobat. Right now, we're very we have Foxit, which is just a alternative, a cheaper alternative to Adobe, and as we start going towards our digitalization and accepting things digital and trying to make things ADA compliant, a lot of that involves having tools necessary to make it those things and be able to work with electronic documents easily. Right now, we have 6 licenses for a perpetual license, which is a one-time, you buy it, you get a license for that version and that version only. Last license we purchased was from about 4 years ago, and it's about 3 to 4 versions old. And at this point, we're experiencing bugs and issues where the software is becoming virtually it's not usable. Every day, even I had to switch to the free version and only use the licensed version for very, very minimal things. And we only had 6 of them, so there were 6 people kind of doing the, the PDF form creations, the converting, the the indexing of documents that were scanned and making them searchable and whatnot. What this does, that line particularly, is it funds us for 20 subscription-based licensing of the same product that allows us to update and keep updated the application to be prevent it from getting bugs, get the support on it, just most importantly, keeping it up to date and functional for our use. It's for 20 licenses. I've accommodated those 20 licenses to be given to every department, at the very least a department head. And if the department head wishes to give it to another person in the department, they're more than welcome to. But like I said, it's an effort to kind of help with the digitalization, keep our software up to date, and not have outdated legacy software because we invest in it and wait until it completely dies out before we have to do another one-time expense on it. Yep. Any questions on that?
Is that for the Foxit product?
Correct. That is
Okay.
for Foxits particularly.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Caesar, this is where on the OneDrive version, that was at $2,700, but Caesar has updated the version, which I will put in the OneDrive tomorrow because I
Correct.
didn't get it till 5:30. But the new price is $1,820.
Correct.
So if you printed out your information,
Oh, you're
That
sharing it
line
with
is
us.
changed.
We can see the,
Right, it's on the screen.
I did want to say the reason why is mainly because I had gotten the price after I had sent out that revision. So we did get, obviously a better price. This is throughout our software and hardware company. The other one was based off MSRP pricing. So line 29, the last increase in my entire budget, which is our endpoint and mobile device management, at a total of $5,500. Essentially, same with line 27, except I'm still waiting on the prices for this. We are expecting this to go down. This is also MSRP prices. This will accommodate the device management for all of our laptops, desktops, and any town-owned mobile devices, and possibly extend over to bring your own device users like boards and committee members having their email on their phones. As the town moves to a more partial, on a case-by-case remote work infrastructure, And as we start opening up our town resources and data and networks to boards, committees, and volunteers and the like, it's becoming ever increasingly more difficult to manage those devices and the data that those devices go on. And almost all companies across the board of various different sizes, there is mobile device management to some degree. I'd also like to add in the fact that since everyone has laptops now, it's harder to maintain and push policy and update machines easily without it being connected directly to the town network with a VPN connection. This removes that ability and allows a town to manage the data on its machines, manage the machines to the fullest extent possible, while making sure that people can still do their jobs remotely if they need to, as well as also protecting the town data from being mishandled, lost, or otherwise damaged.
Is there an offsetting save because you're less reliant on the VPN portal?
Is there a what would you say?
Is there an offsetting save here somewhere? Because if you know, if you're going to mobile device management for devices that were formerly relying on a VPN to VPN in, it just seems to me that one technology is going away and another one's coming in. So is there an offset here anywhere?
I guess in theory, yes and no. VPN is not there for the purposes of what this replaces. What this, I guess, enables the town to do is just a function of what VPN can handle. VPN is mainly so a town device can access on-premise infrastructure securely without relying on that VPN connection to receive security updates, policies, and overall device control. So the VPN would still be necessary for employees who need to access certain applications and files and whatnot. But as opposed to me setting a policy on our local network, which would only get deployed to a mobile device if they connected a VPN long enough to receive that update, this system would take that on because it doesn't rely on the VPN connection. It relies strictly on its own separate VPN on its private cloud, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It seems redundant with a lot of, but I'm cross-applying things with a lot of functionality that you get just by going to the cloud completely and not having a VPN in the middle, not having on-premise.
Well, this kind of,
Sources.
you know, one of the big features of this is it will apply, you know, Windows updates to the
Yeah.
laptops. It'll
And
make
we
sure
manage
they're
them.
right.
Right
and
now,
they
we don't
can-
manage our updates. So
Correct.
everyone's updating as they see a button, they click it, and people accidentally upgrade to Windows 11. Thankfully, that hasn't happened.
This will
but-
push them out so that they're
Yeah.
done in a timely fashion. So you're preventing a lot of security issues due to hackers, due to viruses. It can push out the virus updates that
Yeah.
every time you connect, it's going to push out the latest updates. Make
So
sure
is
you've
that
got the
done
latest antivirus.
that's ad hoc now?
Correct.
Okay.
Essentially, relying on people to connect in
Yeah.
order to receive the very basic security policies that we
Sure.
implement. Like, you know, I'm trying to use an example. I'll use something simple like, oh, a user can't change their desktop background. Something like that. They wouldn't even need to connect to VPN. As soon as that laptop
Right.
turns on and connects to the internet, it
Right.
gets the policy change.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. And I mean, other than that, that's really the only increase. Everything else is level funded. I did include the totals of what each of the, you know, various wages would be. The line, the green space below each of the totals is the bottom line increase of that budget towards the levels funded. So, let's use line 41. This green box right here is going to be the total difference between this amount and this amount. And it's pretty self-explanatory, unless you guys need me to clarify it any other which
No,
way.
it's clear.
Um,
Want to go through your capital items?
Sure. So the facility security cameras, I met with capital planning and they were graciously willing to meet with me. And there are essentially 3 projects. Line 48 is to upgrade our existing camera infrastructure across the board to get it up to standards, fix some of the minuscule issues that we're having with the base systems, not necessarily the camera equipment, but the base systems themselves, and also add to the various town buildings that don't have anything currently. And then the idea is doing a town-wide upgrade and installation to get everyone on one system for ease of management, ease of use, and less burden on myself to have to manage 3-4 different systems, various vendors, specifications, and the like. This,
Sandy, does that come from free cash?
Yeah, that would be from free cash.
Thanks.
so the total amount here, and Sandy, this is, I know that we had talked about the 50, this would replace 56 cameras in total. This is 16. Yep,
This is
and
56
that's
cameras?
correct. And that's just because I did the same thing with the firewall licensing. I got I think it was a 5-year term, spread over 5 years. So under the licensing and maintenance, this would be a consistent 5-year amount addition to the operating budget. The capital would cover the first year. And then the
how much-
equipment,
And then it's 74,000 for maintenance, for the license and maintenance of the
70
program. afterwards?
7,400,
7,400, sorry, yeah.
and that's for the licensing and the hosting and the support of all 56.
Okay, so, excuse me, I don't mean to
okay.
take over your meeting, but when we were talking at capital planning,
Mhm.
you had said, we had separated out the 24 cameras for the police.
Yep.
And we were talking about 78,000 for 32 cameras. Now you're saying we can get the 78,000, we can get all 56 cameras?
Correct. And the reason for that is simply due to the licensing. Because the licensing that was proposed initially, because I didn't have the finance options, because that takes a little bit more time to get processed, that was a 10-year license. So that would have been a 10-year license, flat out straight purchase, in addition to the hardware, which was roughly around, I believe the licensing was close to $6,000 for all 56 cameras for a 10-year license. What we did was I got a 5-year license for all 56 and then financed that total amount over 5 years to get us a 74 consistently for 5 years. The equipment stays the same for all 56. So the only where you saw that drastic decrease was that licensing. We went from a 10-year outright purchase to a 5-year license, but also narrowing that down to an annual amount so that we can maintain a consistent operating line item without it randomly popping up like a jack in the box.
Do you think we have 10-year useful life on these cameras?
These cameras by default come with a 10-year warranty.
Yeah, the new ones will. The new ones will do
Thanks.
it.
And this particular system is cloud-based, so there is no infrastructure except for the
archiving.
physical camera.
Yeah.
All the cameras have internal storage up to 30 days. So if we don't need to replace an NVR or a DVR, we don't need to set up VPNs, we don't need to do anything. It's all encrypted communication to the cloud surveillance system, allowing easy access, secure access, and we have unlimited users to it. It's not, it's like I said, it's price per camera. That's what your license pays for.
The network refresh?
So the network refresh include, and I want to be very specific about this. In 2018, we did a network refresh for, I believe, $39 or so thousand. That particular refresh only included the town hall, highway department, council on aging, and water department. If I didn't say that already, it was only those 4 buildings, and that covered the firewalls and the switches for all those buildings. This network refresh / upgrades is to add network infrastructure to the library, which has since been placed under the jurisdiction of the IT department, whereas prior to this past summer, it was kind of handled on their own. In order to get them onto the network and get them similar to how all the other buildings function, we need to put a firewall in there, switches, and get them pretty much hooked up.
Mhm.
The police department is in severe need of network upgrades. They are definitely, of the two, the priority. They're both important, but the PD / fire department, because they're one network, is the most important. It is my understanding, because like I said, I wasn't, and they were not included in our initial one because they were also on their own. They were not under my, I'll use the word jurisdiction. Their firewalls, their switches are severely outdated. Their wireless network is extremely slow, to the point that they are having to strictly either, again, similar to town hall, but not go home and go on Zoom or use their cell phones on cellular data because their wireless is useless.
Yeah.
And it's simply because the hardware is over 10 years old.
Mm.
So this refresh would cover replacing their firewall, replacing their switches for both the police department and the fire department, as well as putting access points in both. So upgrading all their hardware. The upgrade part of it, I'll say, is for the water department, and that's about $2,500. And that's simply to put updated access points for our treatment plants and to enable remote access more securely to those buildings in order for them to manage the SCADA system, access the network over there, and even access the network from those buildings. Right now, they're kind of off the grid, and the only thing that we can really get to remotely over there with ease is the camera. And that's just because it's on that cloud-based system that we're trying to propose across the board. But that's what that includes. Any questions on that?
No.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks. Anybody?
Of course. All right. And the last one is the printer, copier, and upgrades. So I know, Sandy, we had initially talked about, I think it was like $15,000 initially. And when I was reevaluating what
Actually, you had asked for 25,000, but that's all right. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, my apologies. After reevaluating the devices that were being proposed, I felt it was necessary and I guess a better use of our money to not over upgrade, particularly the library's machine that I was initially requesting, which is a larger physical model, and replace and get essentially the same model that we are requesting for the water and highway departments. Currently, with the machines at both of those departments, they are spending more time outsourcing their day-to-days for something as simple as printing, and they are having to find workarounds for printing out certain reports that are in excess of 200 pages just because their printer is not capable of handling it. In addition, the highway department's use case and overall environment for the printer that they have is not conducive to what their workload is on it. They do various page sizes. They are printing and receiving faxes on various things. They're really two departments. They're not just the highway department. They're highway and cemetery. So there's a lot of copying going around. There's a lot of multi-user. There's a lot of employees using it. It's not just the 3 office employees that are there. You have all your laborers. You have sometimes the water department will go there and use it for certain things that they may need a fax or whatnot. So the equipment that I'm requesting through here is meant to be more cost effective in that the equipment is sturdier, the mechanics are able to handle the workload that they're actually doing, and also provide a maintenance contract so we're not spending as much money as we are and as we have in either replacing the machine because a part breaks or calling someone out to look at it because something broke. They spent a lot of money. So in the past, at least 4 years, they've replaced it twice. And those printers, the printer they have right now costs about $400 a pop. And it's their workload, it's the environment. And I think that we should be investing in something a little more conducive to that scenario, similar to the water department. The maintenance with these particular machines, same thing with the library. The library currently has a plain old office jet, the same printer you'd have at your home office to print out, your 2 or 3 sheets of MapQuest. And that machine is being used for public usage. And as you can imagine, the amount of ink that gets used and wasted because it's for the general public. Me personally, have witnessed and experienced helping a patron print something out. And when I tell you I had a stack of 50 sheets of full colored ink in my hand that just had to get discarded, that was a waste. And it was all because of, they didn't, it's the patrons. They're not technical people. So getting a machine at the library that can handle that use case, but also provide benefit in that they're not going to have to spend money on the ink that they would normally spend on, because part of the maintenance contract, which is a cost per copy, is their ink, their toner, which is all color, is covered. Their parts, their labor, their toner, all covered. They have spent, I believe, and I know Gene's still on the call, I believe the amount was $1,200 on ink alone in 1 year.
Yeah.
And addition to replacing the machine at least once, which would have cost them $300 or so. Based off of the estimated usage that I planned out for their first year of maintenance, the new cost of that would be $640, was what they would spend in a year based off of a usage estimate off of their current print statistics. Part of that 640 is your toner's covered, any repairs are covered, and any parts are covered, if for whatever reason that machine fails or breaks. Now to get to why this price is so, to Sandy's question earlier, why this is so much cheaper is, like a lot of other technological devices, things are no longer upgrading or getting new features every 6 years, every 10 years or whatnot. Things are changing every day. There's new software, there's new security updates. Since these are all internet connected devices, there's certain hardware that goes outdated quicker. What I'm proposing is, as opposed to buying all 3 of these devices, we lease them for 3-year terms, and that guarantees us to future-proof the usage for these departments and to guarantee a new machine every 3 years, as opposed to running it out, paying the maintenance on it, and then having to go to town meeting 5-6 years from now asking for another $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000.
Sandy, can we run a lease through capital?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right
That's
to me.
something we're gonna have to look at,
Yeah.
because we can't sign a lease that guarantees
Right.
2 more years on it.
Not on
I
a
mean,
capital.
So what you're telling me, Caesar, is that's the price each year?
That is the price every year. The annual lease just for the equipment is $3,316. The added equipment cost is estimating an additional paper tray for the water department to handle their bulk jobs.
Right. So my issue, Caesar, is we can't approve this and sign a lease because next year town meeting may not pass it. There's a
Well,
special way you have to do that.
Well,
I would have
my expectation was we would pay for the first year of the lease out of the capital and then incur that cost into the operating for the following 2, and then so on.
Because we have different funding sources for capital and operating cost. And if you start adding it into your operating cost is going to just keep going up. And that's going to be an issue. If we buy them outright, then we're not moving that into the cap. Maybe the maintenance agreement, but
Yeah.
I don't think even that. I think when we purchased the 2 copy machines for town hall, the maintenance agreement was included in the price. For
Correct.
a
It was
certain number of
under
years.
it was under state contract for a 3-year warranty, and then right now we're off that. Right now we're paying cost per copy and whatnot.
And is that in your budget, or that's in the
That's an office
machines
machines.
budget?
That's an
Right.
and that's been accounted for. Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't like I said that's just my proposal. There might, like I said, that's something we can continue to talk about, Sandy. I just think that
So the
in the
price you were
terms of
giving us
future-proofing.
before was $2,500 each for the machine for the water and the machine for the highway. And if you're
Yep, so
you're saying
I would-
doing the same thing for the library?
I would pretty much do 2,500 times 3 is what your equipment cost will be, guaranteed. Give or take,
Would
depending
that
on any
have a
increases.
maintenance agreement with it, Caesar?
The maintenance agreement would still be the same as what would be proposed in this scenario. The only thing different between what I'm proposing here and buying them outright is the physical device lease versus purchasing them outright. The maintenance costs remain the same.
All right, so I'm just trying to get a figure here. So then I would add the
1120
1120 to the
is
7,500.
the estimated. Yep, is the estimated maintenance cost for all 3 machines for year 1.
I mean, I see what you're trying to do, Caesar, and it makes total sense. It was the procedural question that we'd have to figure out how to, we can't hide next year's expenses in a capital plan that then obligates the town to something that they didn't vote on as a recurring. So I want to make sure that we stay this far. I mean, the way you're structuring makes total sense.
No, well, I appreciate that.
I do find some sort of internal contradiction that I'm trying to figure out between the EDM money that we're spending up above and the notion that people are printing 200-page reports. I don't get, there's got to be some, if we're doing EDM, then there's got to be some give, I guess, on the printer side, but that's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah, and I can actually explain that. The issue is twofold. The EDM we are actively working on building out, and with the EDM, we are primarily right now focusing on permitting and trying to get our permits electronic. Eventually down the line, yes, that will become a facet of that, where maybe that 300-page report would become that. However, I don't want to speak for the water department because I don't know if it's a regulatory thing that they have to send out to the state. There are a number of things that the state has not made electronic, and that has no bearing on what we do.
Sure.
I do know, I don't know if Sandy can, because I know that one of the reports that gets printed out, I don't know, semi-annually, annually, I think the word was commitments. I don't know if that requires to be electronic or or printed out. I just know that's one of the heftier documents. I don't know that there's a consumer report that the water department does have to print and provide physically, I guess, to all of its service customers.
Mhm.
I don't know if that can be substituted, but I hope that provides some sort of explanation
Yeah,
as
thanks.
to the difference.
Jean, you've been very patient with your hand raised. Did you have a point to make?
I did just on the library copy machine. So just this year, and I don't know if it's a result of COVID or anything, but the copy machine that I had last year, all of a sudden just broke out of nowhere, just kind of broke. So
Got COVID, did it?
yeah, I guess it had COVID and it just broke, and I had to find a new machine very quickly, which was an easy process because there weren't a lot available. The problem that I had, well, the machine wasn't very expensive. I bought the machine and it's absolutely like killing the library in ink.
Sure.
And I charge, and I've always charged, and I hate to go up 10 cents a copy. And this machine that basically was the only one available to me cost, I think, I figured it out, was somewhere between 16 cents and 17 cents. And I make that up in like color, but now nobody wants to make color copies. So color copies on this machine cost 34 cents and I charge 50 cents. But the point is, so I have this revolving fund going that brings in, and it's always brought in between 1,000 and 1,200, and it's for ink and paper. It's not even, I'm only halfway through the year and it's not even covering the cost of the ink. I've had to like kind of dip into my own supply budget for the library just to kind of keep this copy machine going. So this
Sure.
would be very helpful. Number
Help.
one, it would make better copies. And number two, I hope that people would then be able to afford a color copy. Because before COVID, we had, people were printing out invitations, and, it was just a better alternative to, a printing thing. We were getting all kinds of stuff, and everything was working out great. And so the maintenance, I think I could use my revolving fund for that, Sandy, or would I have to go to town meeting and kind of change the wording on that revolving fund?
At this point, Jean, I believe the maintenance is going to be, for the first 3 years, would be included in the price.
Right.
That's what Caesar just told me.
So I do want to clarify the $1,120. That is the estimated maintenance cost, because that's variable, because again, it's based on cost per page.
Mhm.
That's only for this, for year one. So assuming they maintain that
Right.
usage and they hit exactly that will be the maintenance cost every
Okay.
year.
Yep. So that way we'll figure, that's not just for you though. That 1,120 is for 3 machines.
That's for all 3 of them combined.
Right.
And you obviously split them up accordingly.
Right.
So I think I estimated 240 for each highway and water, and I think 640 of it was for library or some of that nature.
Would have a better figure for you for next year, but for this year, for FY23, Jean, it would be included in the price of the machine. So it would be included in the article.
So so for FY23, Caesar, I don't have to pay that maintenance cost?
So the first year, assuming we did buy the equipment outright, the article would include the equipment purchase and then include the first year maintenance. So you would not have to budget for it. And then once fiscal 24 comes, based off of the usage that we saw throughout fiscal 23, we would estimate and budget your fiscal 24 maintenance.
Right. And hopefully that would be able to be covered by the revolving fund that you'll be charging per copy. Hopefully.
Right. So is
And
the
throughout
ink-
that year, for anything you make would just help build up that account for when you
Right.
get up to the renewal.
So when you say maintenance, that is that the ink is included in that? So I wouldn't be buying ink next year?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
If someone,
right.
I can tell you it's like 0.062 per color copy and 0.0077 per black and white. So let's say you did 5 of each. You're looking at not that you go through a toner cartridge, but your maintenance contract would be $1, less than $1.
Okay,
That'd be
yeah,
it.
because I don't want to go up on my cost, but if we don't do something with that library copier, I'm gonna have to do that. And I've been holding off and being careful what I spend on supplies because I know ink is just a priority.
If you're charging more than 10 cents for either or, you're already making a profit on each copy.
Well,
In the new model,
new
in the new
machine.
model. We know
In
you're
the new
losing money
model.
now, Jake,
Right.
in
Yeah, the new model,
yeah.
yes.
right now I'm losing money every
Yeah.
time they do black and white.
But it's a service you should be providing, so. yeah,
Right, that's how
this
I
makes
feel.
sense. Sure.
Right, and the biggest benefit of this whole thing is the cost per page drops way down.
Exactly.
Getting away from the, laser jet printers, things like that, which are
Well,
very
this is a
high.
laser. This is a laser jet.
Yes,
Right now they have an
but
jet.
the cost per page on a copier is much less than,
Oh, yes,
much
yes,
less
like
than
your
that, yeah.
standard
Or an
It's
HP.
much
an
less.
NFC, Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And their duty cycle takes them a lot longer, so they're a little more durable.
And when he met with Capital, Caesar, you did tell us that these would also be scanners and fax as well.
They will have the scan capabilities, they'll have the copy capabilities, they'll have the print capabilities, and they will have automatic integration with our electronic fax system, which we will be moving towards in the next year or so.
Okay.
So we are going to try to at the same time move away from the copper lines that are there and kind of make it as self-service as possible.
Okay, any other questions for Caesar? Okay, thanks, Caesar. That was really, really helpful. Thanks very much.
Of course. Thank you guys for
Oh,
listening.
wait, are you
tonight.
still there, Caesar? Sorry.
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
here.
Go ahead, John.
Just real quick, all the way back up top with the hours per week. Did you mention that the Board of Select may have the ability to vote on funding to keep the 40 hours going? Was it past June, you said?
Correct. So if the board wishes to
They couldn't do that.
if the board wishes, they can use, and Sandy can clarify, can use ARPA money, a specific portion of the ARPA funds, to reappropriate an additional 15 hours towards the position but from July 1st of fiscal 23 to June 30th of 2023. So if they do that, then finance would be able to budget for the 25 hours, but that's solely dependent on whatever the board wants to do, whether they want to just fund it out of operating for the 40 and not rely on ARPA and use it in other places, or if they want to, that's really up to them and what they're allowed to do.
Can I put my 2 cents in with that? Hi, it's Jean again. So, I think that my 2 cents is that I would like to see that 40 hours come out of the data processing budget. I think it is money well spent. And so that's what I think. I don't want to think it's very prudent to use ARPA money for something that it's obvious to me that we are going to continue to need a 40-hour-a-week tech person. This level service budget really just includes increases that we're always going to be looking at. And then I don't want to spend money on all these projects and then have a 25-hour-a-week person trying to manage all this stuff as we try to move forward in actually all our departments. So that's just my opinion. I would like to see that 40 hours a week put into the IT budget.
Yeah, I think this year, Gene, I think everyone is probably in violent agreement with you. It's the question of the funding source for this year, given how squeezed we are. But I think everyone
Right.
agrees with the principle that you described, which is just because we used ARPA money this year, this is not going to go away. And in fact, I am concerned, maybe others are, about the single point of failure here, that we have no real backup in a single individual who's being asked to manage the entire IT operation for the town.
Right. As we move forward too.
Yeah.
So it's just not going away.
Yeah, no, that was my thought too. If we could buy ourselves another year and then, still have, I would definitely support 40 hours going forward. I'm shocked that you could probably even get it done in that amount of time some weeks.
Can't.
So.
I'm kidding.
She's not right now, which is what implies to me we need a backup for Caesar. Maybe that's
Well-
probably not this year, but a future thing.
You're also putting in overtime, Caesar, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's where, the salaried position, you get, like I said, you get more bang for your buck when it comes to, you're able to make sure that there is someone there who is, I guess, in essence, contractually obligated to be there. Whereas you're not making certain decisions to not do something simply because you don't have the money to pay that person past the amount of work that they were restricted to do, if that makes sense.
Well,
Mhm.
but the trade-off of that is that if you give someone a salary and they're expected to work beyond 40 hours, you're going to pay them better. And they need, you're going to want a skilled person and you're going to pay them more. So you're really not saving money. It is costing you, but you're just paying it up front.
Right, and you can't make the FLSA determination, the exempt, non-exempt determination on an economic basis. You got to make it on a duties basis. So doing the job evaluation still says this job has got to be framed around a 40-hour week. And yes, occasional overtime should come in, but we shouldn't be putting somebody in a position of having to work an unlimited week and think that paying them a salary is the right thing to do.
Or if there's frequent, if you're starting to run into frequent overtime situations, then you definitely need an assistant.
Sure.
At least on a part-time basis or something to help alleviate that.
All right. Any other comments for Caesar tonight?
I actually have one from the COA. In terms of, the position for our Caesar, it's been a very highly, we have the skills plus then, so we have hardware he's doing a lot of different tasks in terms of the IT. And so salary wise, I would think that it would make more sense to go salary as opposed to hourly.
Well, as I said, that's a job evaluation question. There are 4 exemptions under which we can obtain that exemption. So it's just a question of doing a job analysis and seeing whether we can get that exemption.
Right. So, but, just thinking that, with all the support systems in terms of all these different projects, the assistant type person, I was going to even look at type of funding outside of what my formula grant might offer in terms of a, hiring. I don't know if that's a possibility too, where we could help with that. Certain support systems here. He does know a lot about certain things that we do here. And, I'm having some difficulties finding people that would even do a website, something as simple as that, needs to be done in a way that's more progressive today. So we'd like to do some podcasting. We'd like to bring in some other things for the COA to bring some vitality there. So, but I don't know if that's a possibility. But anyway.
Thanks. All right. Those are all viable ideas. We've got to, figure out where they would fit.
I would say that
we move on.
I would say that the board of selectmen would, I can talk to, or Sandy can talk to the board of selectmen and find out how they want to move forward with it. you know, I would say at the bare minimum, 40 hours is definite. Ashley has her hand raised. That came up on my
Hey.
screen. I don't know why Jean's didn't,
Hey,
but
Ashley, yeah, it
Ashley's
came up
dead.
on mine. Ashley, you had a point?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it to the board. I think we have a meeting on the 8th because I do think that we need a 40-hour position for everything that's going on. So I don't have a problem bringing it to the board and letting Troy and Gordon know I was here and listening and see what we can do, what they decide they want to do with it.
It's great. Thank you.
well, thank you guys for listening. I like I said,
Thank you, Caesar. Very
I really
helpful.
do understand how difficult some of the decisions you guys have to make
Yeah.
are. So I get it.
Thanks. Okay, moving on. Just any other updates on other budget items that you guys have all been reviewing budgets and perhaps talking to your constituents and your contacts at those. Any updates to provide tonight on any of the other budgets?
And tonight, nope.
Okay. I have just one. As you guys may have seen the note I sent to the school committee, that what I'm really trying to do is help the school committee go through an exercise of what would be the consequence of level funding when a lot of what they have had to put into the HES budget are unfunded mandates or mandates that they have no choice in determining. So what else would it be that we would have to, because I think it's incumbent on us to illuminate to the town how critical these increases are and what the consequence of taking the money from somewhere else would be to force them to level funding. So we've asked them to go through that exercise. The only update I have is there's a school committee meeting that conflicts with this meeting next week. And they've asked me to go to that. So I would put to the committee, Linda, do we have two departments lined up for next week?
You've got a busy week next week. Give me 1 second. So right now you have the Board of Health coming in, you have the Water Department coming in, you have Building Maintenance coming in, and then Sandy just asked today if possibly the Capital Planning Committee could hop on for next week so that you could review things before you meet with other committees, but I don't know how you feel about that. You have three different departments coming in next week right now.
So I mean, those are key. I can always watch the tape afterwards if I could go to the school committee meeting. If there's no objections here, and if Cheryl wouldn't mind running this meeting next week, we could do it that way. Cheryl?
Yeah. I'm not a good talker like you are, Tom.
I know.
The only thing I would caution is you want to make sure then that everybody else can make it, because it would take everybody else to get quorum.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's another option. Is there any chance we could start this meeting later or move it to Tuesday night for one exceptional week, just so that we can get school committee done?
Yeah, I can do either.
John, could you do?
Yes, that should be fine. Either option.
Okay. When I suggest Tuesday, because I don't know how, I've never been to the school committee. I don't know how long that'll go. Todd, could you do Tuesday?
Yeah, next Tuesday I can do, yeah.
Michael?
That's fine, yeah.
Yep.
And I'm really sorry. Linda?
Yep, probably, but I think you just will have to reach out to all those departments to see if they can also then do Tuesday. just
Oh,
so
of
you know.
course. What am I thinking? No,
Yeah.
you know what, guys? No, what am I thinking? We keep it for 6 p.m. I'll figure out something with the school committee. So let's keep it for 6 p.m. We have a full docket of our own. We've got to get through that docket. So let's see what we can do otherwise with school committee. So no, forget everything I just said in the last 90
Sorry.
seconds. And no, you're right. You're right. I wasn't thinking at all. So we'll figure out the school committee issue. I'll reach out to Summer and we'll sort that out.
I'm
Okay,
sure
so that-
everyone will help Cheryl run the
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah. if
Oh, yeah.
That's the case.
Or
we can
that
help them.
too, right? You got a good crew here. That's actually, the meeting is
Yeah,
not that.
I know.
Yes.
Technically, if
the,
Carol doesn't want to do it, I think any of you are allowed to step up and run the meeting.
that's
as long as-
true.
Not that I
True.
don't
So
want to do
actually-
it. It's just I'm not sure what kinds
Cheryl
of
can
questions
delegate.
to ask.
Cheryl's authorized to delegate this responsibility, right?
Right.
So we could do
I'm not
that.
sure the questions to ask.
So if I can't work something out with Summer, then maybe we may just have to go with that. And it's a simple running of just having these presentations.
Yeah,
brought
I
in.
know.
So I think that wouldn't be too
Yeah,
bad.
then
we'll get through it.
Everybody can ask their own questions if
Yes.
you
Yes.
have questions to
Um,
ask.
Yeah, we'll get through.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
COI,
fine.
COI training. I reached out to Sue Lawless. There was some email traffic this week that was sort of contradictory, and it said that we all had to do the training because the training that we did before didn't count. So we had to do the online training. The thing is, we all did the online training, or the folks, I mean, there may be some of the newer, like John, you may not have done it yet, or Michael, but I know Cheryl and I did the online training. So I'm trying to clarify with Sue what exactly we need to do for conflict of interest training.
I think that was a general message to like everyone, not just to the finance committee.
No, I know,
She just
right.
wanted people to understand that it wasn't the same thing, because some of the newer people thought if they went to that
Right, but it's the
seminar,
same
that they
ethic.
didn't have to do the online, so.
But if we did the
by the end-
online,
We did
So
the
by-
online.
Sorry.
right. So
Being
like
that I was
Cheryl and I did online. Linda, go ahead, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, because I've discussed this with Sue as well. I used
Oh,
to work in the clerk's office. So by mandate from the government, you do have to do the online training. That has to be like
Yes.
once a year you sign that you know you have to test.
2 years.
Every other year you sign that you in fact have to test. You have to do that. The government says so
Right.
to sit on a board or be an employee or
Yeah.
whatever the case is.
Okay,
The other training that went on was the Board of Selectmen asking people to go to that training. It is all essentially the same training, but you absolutely have to do the online one.
oh, okay.
Which
And
we
Sue was
So-
trying to clarify that the online one has to be done. Even if people
Okay.
Didn't,
went to the Board of Selectmen meeting one that they set up, you still have to do the online one no matter
I
what.
don't think anybody went to that one. So Cheryl, did you go,
I
did you
went.
do online?
I did online, printed
All
my receipt and my certificate
Yes,
and
we have
everything.
our little
Yeah.
diplomas. It's on my wall.
I
Okay,
gave it
did
to
online.
Linda, actually.
It's no good on your wall, you have to give it to the town clerk.
Oh, actually, no, I did that. I did that.
I did that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did that. So let me just take a poll here. Todd, have you done the online conflict of interest training?
I did them both, actually. I sat in on the training as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
Right.
I did
Michael?
the same thing. I've done them both.
okay. John?
And if you went to town hall, there was free pizza.
I owe, I
when
was on
took
the
it-
recent one, but I owe.
When I
the
took it,
other
there
one,
was.
so I'll get that
Ah.
done.
Free pizza courtesy of Selectman DeSessa. Might
Yeah.
keep
it was
that in
very
mind.
Nice.
John, the meeting
Very
has
nice of her.
completely deteriorated. I didn't hear your answer.
I was in on the most recent one, but I still owe the online one, so I'll get that done this week.
Okay. Okay, so then, we're done and everything's clear, and I'll tell Sue to ignore my last email query about this. I think we're clear. We're in good shape. As a committee, we're in good shape. John can do his online and then we're all good there. School committee, Todd, could you update us on the revenue ideas folder? I saw it in, but I didn't attempt to. Is that folder available to us now? I think I saw it in our shared drive. And we can start dropping ideas into that, which we will then only discuss in this public forum. Does that make sense to you?
I haven't tried to get in there since, but Caesar, can you just confirm, I guess? Do we all
Yeah.
have access? Okay.
I did have a brief conversation with our town, not our town manager, Selectman Andrews, as well as a very, 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 very brief conversation with town council just to make sure that there are no open meeting law violations, regardless of the committee's intent. So once I get their recommended course of action before I give anyone access, I should have an answer by the end of the week. I just don't want to overstep and do something that puts us in a liability, whether intentional or not.
Okay, so Linda, could you put this as an agenda item for next week? We'll count on Caesar to clarify. And just to be clear, what we're asking for is a repository for ideas, which will not be discussed but it'll be a repository for those ideas so that people can read them and come to this meeting prepared to discuss them as possibilities per Todd's original proposal, that we be able to discuss them here as things that we could bring to the board or to departments as a way to kind of manage the revenue issues that we're trying to manage. We have no idea what's going to come out of this, but it's sort of a brainstorming exercise. I think it's a great out of the box exercise for us to do as a committee, and we will only discuss them here in this public forum. So if you could carry that message for us, Caesar, that'd be appreciated, and then we'll see what we get.
Yeah, no,
next week.
I do. I get it. I just, like I said, really it comes down to what town council's interpretation is of collaboration and discussion. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to, like I said, I'm not going to make assumptions as to how defined that law is. So
Right.
I'm going to rely.
We just want an answer one way or the other. This has been on the docket for about 6 weeks now, so we just want to see what we can do with this.
Of course.
So just so you all know, the building inspector went to the last selectmen's meeting and did up his fees. So I should be getting a new fee schedule so that we know what the new fees are, but that's going to help revenues. So.
Right.
Yeah, I know the town
Okay.
clerk is looking into it as well. She was discussing it with me, so she was saying that they might up theirs because they haven't upped them since I
Been a
was
while.
there, which was like
Yeah.
15 years ago.
And I think the building department was about the same, so.
Wow.
I think it's the last time anybody did them is when I was still down there. So it's working. They're discussing it. You're doing a great job.
Let's see. I think so. Nothing else on the budget for general discussion. I think we can set wage and personnel discussions aside for this week. Any public participation? Hearing none. And any other business the committee wants to talk about?
I just wanted to double check. Is it fine with all of you to add the capital planning on for next week onto the agenda as well, just to discuss the articles briefly with you?
Yep.
Any objections?
Yeah, I think it
it'd
would be great.
And I want to thank Todd. I've been traveling both times, Philadelphia and Orlando, the last two capital planning meetings. So my apologies for missing those, but I'm sure that Todd's represented us well, and it'd be great to talk about that stuff next week if we could.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other business?
I just want to mention, will I be getting together with Todd and Cheryl or at some point, or I didn't know if I was supposed to meet with you last week, Cheryl, or I thought I had it on the calendar to do so. Was
Yeah,
it?
if you want to come and speak, just let Linda know and she'll put you on the calendar.
Okay, and Todd as well, or just
Sorry, for what, Darlene?
Todd as well? Or I knew I was meeting one or the other at one point.
So I think
Well,
Are
I
you
think
asking
if
who
you
your
come-
liaison is?
I'm the
Well,
liaison.
Right, she is Cheryl. Okay, so then, all right, so
Todd is
specifically-
probably her capital planning.
Capital
liaison.
planning. Yeah.
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
Arlene, I think if you come to committee and do it here, there's probably a great way to get to the whole committee. And then if we have clarifying questions, Todd or Cheryl can come back to you with those.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and Darlene, you already asked to be scheduled for March 14th, so you are already on with the whole committee for the 14th.
Okay, good. Yep.
Good.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Got him. Okay, a roll call vote. John,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
and myself, Tom Connolly, is a yes. Thank you all for your attention tonight. I know it was a bit of a long meeting, but I think we got some really good stuff out of it. So I appreciate your attention. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
I think.
see,
Right.
Thank you.
bye.
Bye all.